What are the commonalities among leaders who sustain excellence over an extended period of time?
All right, Doc Z, as you tell me you're known at West Point. It's so good to have you here on the Learning Leader Show. Welcome.
Thank you, Ryan. It's a pleasure to be here.
So as mentioned, you work at West Point. You've directed the performance psychology program for more than 27 years. Can you tell me, what does the person who is in charge of the performance psychology program at one of the greatest leadership schools in the world, what does that person do?
That person supervises a staff of performance psychology trainers. That person interacts with some other leaders of other programs in West Point's Center for Enhanced Performance. And that person spends a lot of time meeting with a lot of individual cadets, with a lot of athletic and other performing teams. And the job is to ensure that our cadets, 4,400 young men and women who have made the commitment to serve their nation, have access to training in the intangible mental skills that will help their development as leaders of character. They have to know how to be confident when things are going poorly, because we live in an imperfect world and things go poorly. They have to know how to focus despite a bazillion distractions. We live in a distracting world, unfortunately. We have to deal with it. And they have to learn how to be composed and be energized despite working very, very hard for many, many long hours, over many long days, weeks, months, etc. Those challenges are very, very significant. And it's not enough to be knowledgeable. It's not enough to be physically fit. It requires some of these mental skills so that you can develop these mental qualities so that you have a chance to perform at your max when you are called upon to do so.
That sounds like a daunting job. How did you first get that, and maybe how has it evolved over time?
Sure. I'm delighted to have the chance to tell the story. We're going back to 1988 when a visionary colonel working at West Point, a fellow by the name of Louis Choga, C-S-O-K-A. Louis Choga was teaching the required junior year military leadership course in our Department of Behavioral Science and Leadership. He was also the head officer representative for the Army West Point football team. The officer representative basically functions as a military mentor to the members of a given squad. Every one of our NCAA Division I athletic teams and every one of our highly competitive club sport teams has an officer representative or a whole staff of officer representatives, depending on the size of the team. Colonel Choga was the head officer representative of Army football, and he and the head coach of the team at the time, a fellow by the name of Jim Young, who is now in the College Football Hall of Fame, those two gentlemen had a blinding flash of the obvious. They said, wow, it's important for these guys to focus. How do we teach them to do that? It's important for these guys to be relaxed under pressure. How do we teach them to do that? And Louis Choka, who had a psychology PhD, he did his dissertation in personality assessment, stumbled across this newly evolving field of applied sports psychology, read up as much as he could, talked to as many people about it as he could, and he came up with a skeletal program of mental skills training, which he implemented, which he piloted with the football team. And he piloted it for a couple of years, and it seemed to work very well. The players bought into it. So soon some other teams at West Point, basketball, lacrosse, etc., say, hey, I want some of this stuff too. So Louis Choga had to attract a few instructors to work in his skeletal program. And over the late 80s and early 90s, the program flourished. In the fall of 1991, Colonel Choga decided that I better make sure that I'm state of the art with all this stuff. I think I need to hire a full-time, fully trained sport psychology expert. And so he sent the word out, national search, and they ended up with me. How about that?
How'd you get it? How did you impress them? I mean, there's probably tons of people who wanted the job.
I'm sure there were hundreds of applicants. I was fortunate to get my PhD at the University of Virginia in their health and physical education program. That UVA program is highly oriented toward applied practice and research. I had done considerable work with various athletes and athletic teams. I had written a short children's book as an outgrowth of one of my motor learning and youth sport classes. I had experience adventuring. I had been a world-class mountaineer for a couple of years. I was a very serious martial artist. I had familiarity with physical discipline, etiquette, survival training. So I guess I was a pretty good fit putting all that together.
I love the story of how things get built, as well as how people create a career and a life for themselves. And it sounds like you've obviously done that and are currently doing that. Let's jump into the Confident Mind, which it was really, I'm really grateful for your team for sending me the book, but it's called, the latest book's called The Confident Mind, a battle-tested guide to unshakable performance. And one of the bylines said, inside mental toughness training at West Point. It's like, oh man. Okay. Nate, one of the questions that I get frequently when working with leaders and leadership teams is, let's say somebody is newly promoted. So they were an individual contributor and they got put on some sort of a fast track and they got promoted to become a manager. So now they have direct reports for, let's say, the first time in their career. And kind of quietly off to the side, they may call me or send me a note and say, I'm not sure I knew what I'm doing. I'm not very confident. I don't want them to know this, but they can probably sense it. But I don't know if I feel good about this yet. I'm happy I got the job, but I don't know. How does that person specifically develop confidence in their new role?
First thing I would tell anybody in that role is to do a little honest reflection and jot down some notes as to why it was that you were selected for this job. What qualities were evident that put you in a position to get the job, maybe above and beyond several other potential applicants? I think you got to start with that. To me, confidence starts with an understanding of where you've come from and what you've got. That's why I ask a lot of people to do a little top 10 moments as a reflective exercise for their particular sport or profession or specialty. What are the accomplishments that you do have?
So like some of the highlights in your career, we'll get to sports, but let's say business world for now. So like I've heard of people saying create a brag book, which maybe, I don't know if I love the terminology, but I know what people mean by that, of your highlights of your career. Is that what you mean?
Exactly. I mean, what are the contributions that you have made to your organization? Mm-hmm. What are the valuable assets that you have? You were put in there for a reason. Let's be honest. What were those reasons? Start with that. And then beyond that, if you are in a position where you have people who are reporting to you who, as you say, might have a longer tenure with the company, might be more knowledgeable about certain facets of the company's business, then it's your job to become their servant.
Yeah.
And you get to take pride in the way that you enable them to go about their business, the way you remove obstacles, not because you know more, not because you are telling them what to do, but you go to them and say, how can I help you? What can I do for you? What are the things that are affecting your ability to do your job and to thrive and feel great in this organization? Once you start doing that, then you get to reflect on those small contributions and successes. Yes, I enabled this person to do this at this time. Bingo. That is a deposit in what I refer to as the mental bank account. And it's those kinds of small experiences that you reflect upon and you build up a bank account of them, so to speak, a repository. And that's what creates a sense of certainty going forward.
Well, let's back up for a second. What is your definition of confidence?
Okay, that's easy. My definition is a sense of certainty about yourself, a sense of certainty about a given ability or about a given related group of abilities that allows you to execute more or less unconsciously. The way you are when you tie your shoes, the way you are when you drive a car and hold a conversation, the way some people, I mean, have you ever watched a good sommelier at a restaurant? You ever watched how smoothly that individual opens up the bottle of wine?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That's what I'm talking about. It's having that sense of certainty, which allows for that ease of execution in your particular professional specialty. Whether you're a surgeon cutting people open, whether you're a musician playing on a stage, whether you are a manager bringing in information, communicating a vision, troubleshooting, solving problems. Are you executing more or less unconsciously, or are you questioning yourself every minute? Oh, is this right? Should I do this? And all that does is produce tension in the body and mediocrity in performance.
Do you think some people are born more innately confident than others?
I'm not so sure about that. I have seen a little bit of data about identical twins raised in separate environments. In some cases, they both have very upbeat, bubbly, positive, optimistic personalities. But I don't think that explains too much of the variation that we observe in human beings. So I pretty much throw away the misconception that, confidence is an inherited genetic disposition.
Yeah.
No, it's something that you learn. It's something that you develop, and it's something that you can actually lose, all depending on how you think about yourself and how you think about the life you're in and how you're thinking about all the things that happen in that life that you are in.
I want to take it, let's take a little left turn, and we're going to get back to business. But I just came up to mind because a few friends of mine popped into my head, and I'm kind of past these days. But I remember when I would go out with friends, maybe to bars, things like that. And there were certain friends that just kind of ooze confidence and were really good when approaching girls. And I wouldn't say any of them were any better looking than any others. In fact, some of them, like if you actually did the scale thing, were less, but they were really good. And they just had this confidence about them. Where do you think, like that comes from? I know this is kind of a tough question, but as I'm thinking of them, because now years later, many of those same people are doing extremely well in various businesses or leadership roles, because that confidence is transferred to, going out to now whatever it is they're doing for work. What do you think it is about just those that they're able to approach others with kind of a swagger, a confidence about them? Like, what does that come from? Where does it come from?
Most likely it comes from them observing someone else doing it. They had a model, a formal model for the role or an informal model for the role. They learned that one could behave a certain way. And so they played the role, and the results were as they were. You make an interesting point about that kind of confidence transferring into the professional world. Sure, that happens, but there's no guarantee that that happens. Another misconception about confidence is that it is sort of across the board, as you're implying. You have it here, hence you have it there, hence you have it everywhere. My experience is that confidence is very situation specific.
Because
Certainly,
you're saying it's built up based upon, because to me, and I think about the most confident moments of my life. So sports, business, whatever it may be. Usually it's because I've let's just start as like an 8th grader going into high school. Like, I was undersized, but I went through these amazingly hard workouts going between my 8th grade and freshman season. And I got stronger and I felt unbelievably prepared. I felt almost invincible because of my coaches and how hard they pushed us, not only me, but my teammates, leading up to the games on Friday nights. And I was fortunate to be able to play early on the varsity team as a freshman and do well. And then the confidence just exploded from there. And I'm curious. So I try to take from that into all areas of my life. When it comes to a podcast, being overly prepared. When it comes to a keynote speech, knowing it cold, right? Practice, reps. I'm a reps guy, right? Like Peyton Manning was known for getting every rep in practice as a quarterback. And so I'm curious, as you've seen, you're the science behind it. What are some of the keys to building confidence that you've seen across a wide group of people, not just my one personal anecdote?
Sure. I love the reference to yourself as a reps guy. Okay. Get the reps, do the work, do the drills to build the skills to pay the bills, as they say. Okay. That's part of it. The part that nobody ever seems to talk about is the conclusion or conclusions that one draws from getting all those reps. Like, oh, I've gotten the reps, now I'm ready. As opposed to, well, I sure have gotten a lot of reps, but I wish we had gotten some more reps about this. Or I know I studied hard, but I'm really still not very sure about chapter 7, for the midterm, So as important as the reps are, and I'm all about getting the reps, and I'm all about, having a well-developed internal workhorse, it's just as important that you conclude from your reps, yep, I'm ready. Yep, I got it. Yep, my guys believe in me. I believe in my guys. We're going to go out there and kick some butt today.
How do you get to that conclusion, though? Like,
it's a formal process of looking back. I know this. I know this. I know this. I know this. Okay, it's basically doing an inventory of how far you've come, of the work you've put in. If we continue to use the bank account analogy, it's answering the question, well, what's in your wallet? What do you got?
So you're actually saying to yourself, I've done the work, I've done the prep. And this is almost Is it a self-actualization thing? I mean, what is it that gets people to the point to say they've concluded, I'm ready to roll. Let's go. Like, how is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying. And it's an individual thing that changes for everybody.
Okay.
I have done the work. It's time for me to let out what I have packed in. It's time for me to start to spend my money. I've been saving it. I've been working it. I've been developing this. Now I'm going to let it out. Now I'm going to let it fly. Now I'm going to trust that all the work that I've put in is enough.
Yeah.
That is the key right there. And that's the difference between a guy, that's the difference between a workaholic,
Yeah.
and a functionally effective workhorse who can then step up to the line and say, okay, now I'm a racehorse. Now I'm going.
You remind me of a story I've written about recently. I was in Washington, D.C. at this super bougie hotel that it was a big conference. And I was scheduled to talk at 2:00 in the afternoon on a Sunday. And there were about 400 people in the room. And I get there early to watch the people before me, to kind of get a feel for the space and make sure, all the AV stuff's good. And I noticed that starting with the speaker before me at 1:00, there were a lot of people in the crowd. And I would say 90% of them, maybe more, were older than me, like way older than me. And they're watching on their phone the NFL Red Zone channel. It was in the fall, right? 1:00, games are just starting. And I remember I texted my dad before this speech and I said, this is terrible. They're not paying attention. They're way older than me. Who in the world am I to say anything? By the way, they all stayed at this hotel. I did not. They said, we'll put you up, but we'll put you up down the street in a much cheaper hotel. So I already felt like I'm less than, but yet they paid me well to be there to speak. But anyway, I texted my dad this and he said, hey, and we've had this conversation before, but he was reminding me, hey, you're the baddest dude in that room. Go put on a show. And it was just this, oh, yes, he's right. And I know you write about this in your book, which I love. That it's not just one part, it's many parts. I love that aspect of, I just needed a little bit of a nudge from somebody who I love, obviously the greatest mentor in the world for me, to say, you're the baddest dude in the room. And this kind of humility, this humble part goes to the wayside for a little bit. And you say, I'm going to take ownership of this place and put on a show. And it ended up being one of the best ones I feel like I've ever done. I'd love for you to share some of the science behind this baddest dude in the room comment my dad has done for me on more than one occasion, because this is stuff that you write about in your book that I love.
The science is pretty darn simple. If you're entertaining all kinds of questions to yourself, are they going to want to listen to me? Have I done enough preparation? Am I really the right guy for this moment? Then your ability to have a relaxed face, relaxed vocal cords, your ability to recall with a great deal of genuineness and excitement and energy and automaticity the notes that you have studied, all of that is going to be compromised by your questioning about yourself. It's no different when two competitors go out on the wrestling match. They step out on the mat. Who is going to believe that they're the better performer? Who is going to say, this is my match, this is my period, this is my moment, I'm in charge here? And you have to be able to maintain that, even if your opening salvo to your audience doesn't perk them up. You've got to be able to maintain that sense of yourself. So the science is really kind of interesting. All those internal self-generated thoughts that you're having about yourself while you are doing something are sucking up a whole lot of your mental energy. They're actually jamming up some of the neural transmission lines that allow you to read your audience, stay with your pre-prepared scheme and train of thought, and react beautifully and gracefully when it's time to take a question or to subtly deviate and switched from something that you have pre-prepared to something that's in your back pocket for maybe a speech that you did 2 weeks ago, but suddenly it seems to be the right moment to bring that out. And you just have this intuitive sense that I got to go with this, and you go. That's what makes good speeches good speeches.
At the beginning of your book, you write, victorious warriors win first and then go to war, while defeated warriors go to war first and then seek to win. Is from Sun Tzu.
I didn't write that. That's a
published quote. You could quote Sun Tzu. So anyway, can you share what you mean by that and why it was so important for you to put that at the beginning of the book?
Well, I put that at the beginning of the book because, Ryan, I'll tell you, your listeners might be interested. My initial thought for the title of this book was just simply going to be The First Victory. The first victory. Before you can go into battle and be at your maximum level of effectiveness. And when I say go into battle, I'm talking about stepping onto the athletic field, stepping into the stage, stepping into the negotiating room. Before you go do your thing, as we used to say in the 60s, you have to win that first victory. That victory over self-doubt, that victory over worry, that victory over fear of all the myriad of things that could happen. So Sun Tzu was right when he was penning this sometime between the 3rd and 6th centuries BC. The guys who win tend to be the guys and gals who have decided ahead of time, we're doing this. The losers enter the fray, enter the field, enter the stage, enter the room, telling themselves, gosh, I hope this works out. So nothing I've got to say is all that new and revolutionary.
So on that side, you've done a lot of work with Eli Manning, right? 2-time Super Bowl winning quarterback, will be in the Hall of Fame. And he's beaten Tom Brady, who is one of the most, he's won more Super Bowls than anybody. I would imagine both of those guys, as they went into battle on the field, Eli and Tom Brady said, okay, we're doing this. I doubt Tom Brady said, well, I hope this works out, when he went and then lost to Eli Manning, right? So my question, Nate, there is both people who played there had the same mindset, or I don't know if it's exactly the same, but I'm guessing it was similar, where I know you've helped Eli build up his confidence, and Tom Brady seems very confident. What do you think about that?
What do I think about the difference in those 2 Super Bowls?
Yeah.
Well, first, I will agree with you that those 2 quarterbacks probably had a pretty healthy dose of certainty.
Yes.
Coming into the game and hanging on to it throughout the game. Football is the ultimate team sport. A whole lot of things had to go right for the New York Giants to prevail in both of those Super Bowls, 42 and 46. I will tell you this, that in the ultimate moment of Super Bowl 46, when Eli unleashed a beautiful 40-plus yard rainbow that set up their winning touchdown, he was pretty darn certain about that call and about that throw. He threw that with conviction, not, okay, I hope this one's going. He looked right, he looked back left, he put the ball in a place where either it was going to be caught by Mario Manningham or it was going to fall harmlessly out of bounds. And Manningham was tightly covered. So he was certain, he was in the moment, he was relatively unconscious letting that ball go. And he was asked a couple of days later after the Super Bowl, well, do you ever think about the ramifications of failure? And Eli said, well, Eli was very polite about it. He said, well, heck no, you don't think that way. That's what you don't do. Instead, you think about all the times you've had comeback victories. You think about all the times you have done it well. And this is, again, getting back to how do you use your memories of your past? What is it that you bring into your consciousness at certain moments, certain important moments? Do you bring back the times that you have been successful, the times you have engineered those kinds of comebacks? Eli's engineered some comebacks. Eli has also engineered some comebacks that didn't work.
Yeah.
But in that moment, he's only thinking about the ones that did work.
What
Unquote, misremembering the other ones.
Yeah. What was it like when he came to you at a certain point in his career and said, I need help, right? And I don't know if I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but what exactly, when you guys started working together, what was the need there? What was he hoping to accomplish by working with you?
Eli Manning, like so many other great athletes, was curious about pretty much everything. What can I do to get better? I want to be the greatest quarterback in the history of the New York Giants. I want to be the greatest quarterback whose last name happens to be Manning. You know, I want people to forget about Phil Simms, who also won Super Bowls for the Giants. You know, I want to be the guy. How do I get there? What have I not considered? Okay. And, you know, he played college football at Ole Miss, and you don't get much bigger than Ole Miss when it comes to college football seriousness. This is Southeastern Conference. I mean, this is big time. So, you know, state-of-the-art film study, state-of-the-art weight training, state-of-the-art coaching, et cetera, the physical, technical, tactical parts of the game. You know, he had been juiced in that since he was a kid. But he had never had any formal training in the psychology of being a great player. And when he and I were introduced, Eli was curious enough to say, well, yeah, let's explore this stuff. This might work. He didn't know, but he was curious. And I think that kind of curiosity, that kind of honesty about what you know and what you don't know, is a very valuable trait.
Do you remember aha moments or inflection points in your relationship where you shared something and he was like, it really like turned his head and made him think that then you actually saw that go from you two meeting to results on the field?
I can think of, a dozen moments like that, Ryan. I mean,
Okay.
One of the very earliest was he and I simply talking about what it was like to play great. What is your state of mind when you are playing at your most successful, impressive, fulfilling, memorable level? And I asked him to tell me stories about his most successful games, his most memorable games. Well, what are the adjectives that describe your state of mind in those moments? Not how good you felt afterward, but how did you feel in those moments? How would you describe your state of mind? And he came up with a really long list, you know, open, decisive, confident, energized, relentless. Okay. Let's conclude that those are the components, those are the characteristics. That's the real Eli Manning. So that first discussion where it got, wow, this is what it's like to play great. That state of mind, maybe I can cultivate that state of mind. And maybe instead of hoping that, you know, good things happen and I get off to a good start, and then I just get on a good emotional roll as a result of things happening, maybe I can take a more proactive approach, cultivate this state of mind first, and that will empower, enable, engender some of those good things.
I feel like if you ask me that question, I'm thinking, and I bet this is the same for a lot of people, is you mentioned this in your definition of confidence, where you're almost executing unconsciously. Like you're not thinking. There's there's certainly like muscle memory that's probably been built from reps or whatever. It's like when you complete a 60-yard pass and you lead the receiver perfectly where they don't even have to slow down at all. It's perfectly in stride. And someone's like, how do you do that? And how do you measure? I'm like, I'm not measuring it. It's just a feel. I hit the 5th step, I hitched, and I let it go. And it came down where it needed to come down for my receiver to catch it 60 yards away. Like it I don't know. It's like unconscious, it seems.
Well,
and I'm wondering,
unconscious is precisely the word.
Yeah.
Okay. Human beings execute complicated skills, complicated actions, complicated behaviors best when they're pretty much unconscious about it. All the conscious, deliberate, ongoing analysis, judgment seems to engender a level of self-criticism, and that conscious mental process accesses a whole lot of other parts of your brain that you do not need, that actually interfere with or compromise your execution of the thing that you want. You mentioned the term muscle memory. This is perhaps splitting hairs, but I'd like all your listeners to understand that there's actually no such thing as muscle memory, because your muscles don't have any capacity to remember anything. Your muscles simply twitch, and they twitch on command through your nervous system. So what we refer to as muscle memory is actually well-greased, well-grooved series of neural commands that can happen automatically. I feel the ball in my hand. I see the receiver break. I let go of the ball.
Yeah.
Those commands that indicate speed of the arm, twist of the hips, force applied to the ground through your back leg, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Thousands and thousands and thousands of neural commands are executed relatively unconsciously, and we do it better when we do it unconsciously. That's just the reality of our human nervous system. I mean, our conscious analytical process is wonderful, but our unconscious intuitive process is just as wonderful. And in many cases, that's the one we want to rely on. It just works better that way.
So if we take this from the field to the boardroom, in the business world, it feels like, and maybe I'm just oversimplifying, so fix this, I guess, is that so much of the confidence is built through repetition, preparation, and being able to look back and say, I've done this before. I can do this. I'm going to do this. I know I can do this because I have. That's what it feels like. Like, what am I missing between prep and repetition and being able to review and say to yourself, oh, I've done this before. I'm going to do it again. What else am I missing?
I don't think you're missing too much.
Okay.
The only thing that I'm not hearing is that conviction that because I have done it before, now I'm okay. Now I'm enough. The challenge for us is to set aside some of our conditioning, some of our socialization, if you will, that has encouraged us to always look out for more, try to get more, practice more, never be satisfied with ourselves.
Yeah.
That level of sort of ongoing questioning we can sometimes indulge in at the wrong moments. Now, that kind of questioning is really good if you're a football player and it's Monday and Tuesday. Yeah. I got to look back at the game dispassionately, honestly. Sometimes I got to be my harshest critic. I also want to be my own best friend, but I've got to be very logical and very analytical. What did I do right? Where did I mess up? What do I have to fix in the coming days? But as Wednesday turns into Thursday and Thursday turns into Friday, and Friday turns into Saturday before a Sunday game, that football player has to be saying, okay, I've made this adjustment. Okay, I've learned how to react in that situation. Okay, now I know what to do in this particular situation that's likely to come up in this part of the game on Sunday. So you're making that transition from being very questioning, very analytical, to being more accepting, more trusting, more decisive. So when the ball is kicked or when the ball is snapped on Sunday, you're much more likely to sense and react, look and do. And that is the way you give yourself the opportunity to be at your max.
You write about, I may pronounce this wrong, Ginny Stevens. Is that it right? Ginny Stevens?
Yeah,
Ginny Stevens, who, this is a Business World example. She was working as a mid-level executive and was going to be a participant in this big presentation, but not actually present, was just going to be sitting in the room. And all of a sudden, the day of the meeting, a higher up came to her and said, "You're going to deliver it." And initially this created a little, she's scared a little bit, but you write in your book, you can armor yourself against any unexpected turn of events and also against known and expected difficulties of life by building for yourself a personal mental fortress, a guaranteed foolproof bank that holds your personal confidence account. So this is a very real life example, Nate. So I'm glad you wrote about it, where somebody is asked off the cuff or 10 minutes before the meeting, you're presenting or you need to be prepared. And Ginny's example is a great one. Can you talk about this confidence account, this foolproof bank? How can one in let's say they have a job like Ginny's, build this confidence account and foolproof bank?
Sure. It's a matter of doing the proper kind of regular reflection on your past, plus a conscious, deliberate attempt to tell yourself constructive stories about yourself in the present. And third, making sure that the pictures and the short video clips that our imagination builds up are indeed constructive themselves. So it's a process of really thinking constructively and effectively about your past, about yourself in the present, about your future. I don't use the term positive thinking. That just seems to bring up images of sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows, with a few unicorns thrown in here and there. And I don't know about you, Ryan, but I'm pretty sure most of your listeners do not live in a world of sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows. So the idea is making sure that you are benefiting day by day from the small episodes of effort that you put in day by day, small successes, things, little things that you get right, and building a sense of making progress day by day. And I counsel people to literally journal ESP, effort, success, progress. It's a 2-minute exercise. Are you looking for the best in yourself? Each one of those memories of the day, where did I put in quality effort? As in, where did I get over my sense of procrastination and get something done that I didn't want to do necessarily?
What's the journal entry? What, say it again? Effort, success, progress. So what's
effort,
the journal
success,
exercise?
Progress, ESP, your daily ESP. Doing that reflection at some point toward the end of the day, looking back on the day, that is a way of depositing some valuable material, some psychological money into that bank account. I recommend that you open up your bank account by doing the top 10 exercises. What are the top 10 moments in my sport, in my profession, in my career the contributions I've made, the things I've learned, the recognition that I've received. Okay, that's your starting point. But then for every day from then on in, you got to keep contributing to that. You are going to reflect on your day. We do that as humans. It's a question of what are you going to reflect on with the greatest amount of energy and with the greatest amount of repetition. So doing that is a way of building up that mental bank account day by day by day. And you can also, if you want to take it one level more precise, more exact, you can reflect on pretty much each drill of your practice session. You can reflect on each meeting, each customer interaction that you have throughout the day, and do a very small ESP type reflection on that hour. You know, if you are a member of an athletic team and you go to practice and you do 10 repetitions of drill number 1 and the coach blows the whistle and she sends you off to drill number 2, between the end of drill 1 and the start of drill 2, what are you taking with you? What are you reflecting upon of those 10 repetitions? You know, I think most of your listeners will be honest enough to say, yeah, I used to either take away the memory of the last repetition, whatever it was, or I was kind of in the habit of taking with me the reflection of the worst rep that I had in that drill. Yeah, you're nodding and smiling. You've been there. Okay. Yeah, sure. I teach all these folks, okay, you just did 10 reps. Take with you the memory of the best rep you had. That's what you want more of. The science is pretty, the science is pretty clear. Whatever it is that you think about the most tends to be what you get. So you want to think about the best rep you had because that's what you want more of. And if you were to do that, drill, reflection, drill, reflection, drill throughout the 10, 12, 15, 20 drills of a practice, you'd probably be competing with a lot more enthusiasm. You'd probably be practicing with a little more energy. And boy, would it be easy for you to do that ESP reflection at the end of practice or at the end of the day, because you had basically ongoing practice with it.
What do you think about visualization? I think of Jason Day, the golfer. He lives here in Columbus, Ohio. So I know he's big, where he would hold with his right hand on his left glove. He would hold a part of it. He'd close his eyes standing behind the golf ball, and he would visualize the shape of the shot and where it's going to land. Right. What do you think about visualization in that regard?
I think it's a wonderful practice for people to get good at. Most golfers tend to do some variation on that, you know, and I sure encourage a lot of them, our members of our team at West Point and some of the young collegiate and aspiring pros that I consult to, you know, pick out a target. Where do you want your ball to go? Have a good picture of that. Okay. And then what's the trajectory of the ball to get to that exact place? Mm-hmm. What's the path it's going to take through the air, or if it's a putt, on the ground? And then what is the exact stroke, the exact swing that's going to produce that flight that's going to put the ball to the target? You get that clear first before you even think about stepping up to the ball.
Like in the business world, how would you visualize like a one-on-one meeting, a town hall, a big moment, a presentation for a potential client, things like that?
I think you visualize not just the outcome that you want to have, the consensus on the plan, the agreement on a course of action, but you envision the way you want to be throughout that discussion. How do you want to be in those moments? Can you imagine? Can you see yourself? Can you feel yourself being relaxed, being attentive, being decisive at certain moments when you know that a point has to be made. So it's a matter of, yeah, I want to see this outcome. I can see that handshake. I can see this figure on the board. I can see that. I can see that. That's great. But I can also see myself and feel myself being attentive, flexible, if that's what's called for, and being decisive. So it's a matter of seeing how you want to be and actually feeling the way you want to be. You know, that's the other kind of imagery that a lot of people don't necessarily engage in. You know, they have an idea of, you know, hitting that home run. They have the idea of making that touchdown pass, but do they have a sense of how they need to be throughout the course of the game? You know? And do you spend some time actually envisioning responding to a tough question, responding to a setback? Okay. This is where some of your preparation needs to be. Okay, who's my audience? What do I think their agenda is? How am I going to respond if this happens, if that happens? That's a very powerful form of using visualization that a lot of folks don't bother with. I think it's very important to do that.
I want to
envision a setback, but then envision yourself handling it and getting back on track.
Yeah.
And finishing beautifully.
And from a leadership perspective, I think one of the things that it took me a bit to understand is the weight of your actions and words and your body language. I've been studying this a lot recently and thinking about the leaders in my life who have impacted me. And I when I was a freshman in college at Miami University, we had a fifth-year senior named Mike Bath. I love Mike Bath. And the way he carried himself, he had this charisma and moxie, yet he's still humble and like super likable. And he just oozed confidence when he would strut into the huddle and he would call the play, and his cadence like reeked of confidence and like everything about him. He had a great smile and like could wink perfectly. Like, I'm not good at that at all, you know, like all these things. But the reason I bring that up is because one, I'm kind of wondering like, how did he develop that? But two, as a leader, it gave all of us, his teammates, this confidence, like we're going to win or we're going to play well today because our leader, our guy, the way he carries himself makes me feel like we have a better shot. You know what I mean? And so I think from a leadership perspective, this is important. And I know we're talking a lot of sports, but it still carries over of the weight of your words, actions, and your body language, because it can generate belief from those who maybe aren't fully sure.
Oh yeah. What is the level of conviction that you as a leader bring into every meeting?
Yeah.
You know, if you could watch yourself on tape entering the room or getting the session going, if you could watch yourself on tape, would you go, wow, this individual really feels powerful enough in that moment? You know, do you bring a strong level of belief to your team? The old saying is rather trite, but I think it's true. Attitudes are contagious. Is yours worth catching?
Yeah.
So, you know, that does not mean you necessarily walk into the room with your chest puffed out and you slam the date book down and say, all right, people, let's get busy here. No, not what we're talking about, you know?
Yeah. One more, Nate, if you have a time for it. Given your extensive experience with so many amazing leaders, both on the playing fields and in the business world, on the battlefields, I mean, it's incredible. What have you found to be some of the common characteristics and or behaviors of leaders who sustain excellence over an extended period of time?
Okay. Well, the first thing that comes to mind is something that we've touched upon a little bit earlier, curiosity.
Yeah.
How can I get better? How can I do a better job? I think that that's pretty high on the list. Second is honesty. What am I good at? What am I not so good at? What do I need to learn? What do I need to sustain? That level of honesty. Sometimes we take that and it's just, basically a way of being self-critical. Okay. We also have to be honest in terms about our successes, our good attributes, what we do bring. And then, after curiosity and honesty, I think patience is really darn important, because change doesn't happen within yourself automatically. It certainly doesn't necessarily happen on the part of your team automatically. You have to be patient doing the things that your honesty and your curiosity have revealed to be important.
Really, really good.
I like to do things in threes, Ryan. So I'm going to say curiosity, honesty, and then the resultant patience to make it work. My dissertation at Virginia was all about how do I get athletes to stick with a program of visualization to the point where it can actually work for them.
Yeah.
It was all about that patience, patient application, instead of just getting, distracted by the next shiny object, or being discouraged if the thing that your honest introspection has revealed to be important doesn't produce instant results. We are such an instant gratification culture around here. I think we got to learn how to be a little more patient with the things that our guts tell us are important.
Agreed with you. Nate, this is flew by. I really appreciate your time. The book I would encourage people to get is called The Confident Mind, a battle-tested guide to unshakable performance. Really well done. It's been blurbed by some amazing people. Really appreciate your investment being with me today, Nate, and I would certainly love to continue our dialogue as we both progress, man.
Hey, it would be my honor and privilege to get back with you, Ryan, any old time.
Thank you so much. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for inviting me, and best to all your listeners.